Germans in the 1800s. But you know what? The first people to use tetracyclines goes back 2,000 years, okay? So here's the polyketide synthesis pathway found in Streptomyces. It makes the yellow product. And back in Egypt, all right, and they found this fellow here, Dr. George Armelicus. Can you see George there? Good, good. George is like, oh, he passed away, but George was the Goodrich C. White Professor of Anthropology, right? And so in 2000, I had a Gordon conference I was chair of called Non-Antibiotic Properties of Antibiotics, by the way. And so we invited George because in 1980, one of his grad students detected these fluorescent osteons in bone. And she said, oh, doctor, this looks like, this looks like a tetracycline ring that we see in cows. He's like, really? So they started to study it, and they found it in this tribe in ancient Nubia that was about close to 2,000 years old. And so he showed up at the conference. And he said, Mark, I sent these bones to Pfizer. They couldn't determine if that was tetracycline. I sent these to Wyeth. They couldn't either, right? He said, could you do it? I said, George, send me some bones. Happy to take a look at it. And by the way, even though I'm a hardcore medicinal organic chemist, I advise everybody to learn as much as you can about analytical chemistry. HPLC, GC, LC, mass spec, NMR, right? Because it helped out here. I said, sure, send me some bones. I get this box. I figure, he's going to give me some ground up. He sent me like parts of skull with hair on and like a tibia. And I'm like, oh my God. So I took the bones, and I work with anhydrous hydrogen fluoride. And if you ever seen the movie Aliens, right, older movie, when the alien cuts itself and its blood starts eating through the spaceship, okay? That's what anhydrous HF is. But anhydrous HF is like a miracle for dissolving bone. I dipped 5 grams into anhydrous HF, and I extracted it, put it through a chromatography column, resin, and that's what I got. Look how yellow that is. Now, when you take a first-generation tetracycline and it's got this hydroxy group there, right? What happens is that in the presence of acid, it dehydrates and forms anhydrotet. And so I calculated that in my mind, and when I put it on the LC mass spec, voila, sure enough, it was tetracycline, right? I proved that this NAC specimen in 2000, and by the way, it wasn't a small amount. This was a 4-year-old child whose femur I extracted, okay? And so the whole tribe of 70, 80 people had these osteons. They were making this stuff. And so the theory goes with George, and it's been studied and it's been ratified by other, archaeologists who used to beat him up over this, by the way, that, fermentation's been around for millennia. And when they were making gruel out of grain to preserve it, okay, well, Streptomyces somehow got into the vat. And the vat turned into a golden mycelial mixture. So if you're an ancient Nubian next to Egypt and your beer, your gruel turned into a golden, mycelium, you'd think you were onto something, wouldn't you? Well, that whole tribe took that concoction and they had it going for 50 or 40 years, right? And then it turned out that there's other communities around the Mediterranean that also must have adopted that culture because there's other osteon labeled bones. Now, I'm still working with people that want to find a better method instead of using alien blood hydrogen fluoride. And so we haven't gotten there yet. And it's a great story because it just shows that, ancient man had technologies, and tetracyclines were some of the first antibiotics ever used by man. So if somebody says Alexander Fleming, well, Alexander Fleming used to take vacations all the time, and that's why his place got contaminated, because he wasn't there to clean them up. And all of his coworkers used to comment, he's never around. Anyway, I study these things. I don't know why. So just to kind of tie all this up, I had an idea back when we were making tetracyclines, and we already had the drug in the clinic, and I had an exploratory group. And I said, guys, flavonoids, isoflavonoids, and compounds like hesperetin, guess what? They look just like half of a tetracycline. And guess what? They're anti-inflammatory because we were studying the anti-inflammatory activity of these molecules. So we took hesperetin, and by the way, we tested it in this footpad model, which basically is, as I remember, you put the mouse on a hot plate and see how long it can stand there. So in the case of Mino, okay, it stood there, 30% of the time. Hesperetin, though, and indomethacin, it stood there 50% of the time, okay? So we started to chemically modify hesperetin. And by the way, this is a great area of natural products, phytochemistry, that's just not being studied. If I was going to start another company, it would be just to take natural products like hesperetin. Well, we already did it. We put a halogen here, right here, and started making transition metal coupling. But when the company went out of business, at least on my watch, we stopped, But hey, listen, I got it all locked up here. If anybody wants to make derivatives of flavonoids, putting the halogen on there, doing transition metal couplings, or even amino methyl groups, right? Give me a call. I'd love to see people succeed in chemistry and biology and life, all right? Probably to my own detriment. It's called, I also study a lot of neurology of business, okay? And there's a concept called reciprocal altruism that well, some of your professors may understand it and some may not. But the idea is you give something to another organism at the expense of yourself. And I do that a lot. I did it with the tetracyclines, and I still do it today. So if somebody called me up and said, hey, I'd like to work on this, that'd be great. But in any case, here's a cannabinoid that I just ran into recently because I do work with people in Colorado in the cannabinoid industry. And they're all like crying the blues, like, oh, chromatography is so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're not doing it right, okay? You can separate these things, but here's a compound called a cannaflavonoid. And these are potent anti-inflammatory agents. And, I was talking to this guy and I said, well, how are you doing? How are you doing this? Well, we make the gel code and then we cyclize it and we make the chromine and then we do this and we do that. I said, man, that's a lot of steps. And how are you? Well, we're having a problem purifying it. And so I suggested to him, I said, hey, all you got to do is break that bond, not even break that bond, go out and buy some quercetin, right? I got a half a kilogram in my closet right here. Anyway, quercetin is a great starting material. It's also a potent anti-inflammatory agent, and you see a lot of people taking it for things like COVID, right? And for cardiovascular disease, and it's for sale at your local GNC. And I got a half a kilo here, but semi-synthetically, one could easily take this molecule, which, by the way, your starting materials have to be cheap, okay? In order to commercialize stuff, you got to have a cheap, readily available starting material. And quercetin is cheap because it's a byproduct of the citrus industry. So in this case, hey, here, take this, put a bromine there, then go to my old company, Frontier Scientific, and buy this trifluoroborate and a couple catalysts, and voila, you put an isoprene-like unit at that position. Hasn't been done before. There's a free one for everybody. So if you guys like organic synthesis, there you go. So finally, I just want to talk about SwordTech, a shameless plug. I love these guys. I've known them for a decade. We do all kinds of work with people all over the world. We sell solid phases. TLC systems are popular for labs, okay? Graduate, undergrad level. HPLC, chromatography, and we also help people out. If you came to me and said, Mark, I can't separate these things worth beans, I would help you because, again, that reciprocal altruism that, well, it's kind of pathological sometimes, says my wife. So, but we have, all types of things, flash chromatography systems, syringe filters so you don't damage your instruments, desalting buffer exchanges, contract R&D, and we do a lot of work with the cannabis industry, okay, as I mentioned. And so, I'd be happy to send these to anybody who writes me. I think Rev has got my email address, and absorbance aplenty. Again, the good chromatography is good. If you don't know what you're doing, it can cost a lot of money and cost a lot of material. So get as much advice as you can from your mentors, your professors, and hey, work in the lab. If you got to get up at 2 in the morning and run in and do an experiment, you'll be better for it. It builds character. So we have all this stuff, and we do all kinds of science. I work with all kinds of different materials, and one of the things in cannabis is getting rid of toxic contaminants. That's a big deal. I've seen companies come and go trying to do this because they didn't understand chromatography, but we're happy to help. And Storm Tech, well, they're my friends, and hey, let's connect. So finally, hey, let's connect. So finally, what brought me here was Nicholas Denton, who has joined us. And I met Nick Denton, I don't know, what was it, 6 months ago, Nick, maybe 9 months ago. And, I got caught up in a project looking for compounds that block certain wavelengths of light, blue light blockers. Have you heard of those? Well, if you haven't, it's because between 420 nanometers and 440 nanometers, right? If you have light impinging on your skin, on your retinas, guess what? They impinge on your mitochondria because your mitochondria have porphyrins in, right? And porphyrins, your mitochondria make 3 different porphyrins. I don't remember what they are, but you can look it up. But so the whole industry has gone gaga making blue light blocking agents. And so when I was at Frontier, we are the experts in porphyrin chemistry. And so a company came to us and said, hey, what do you guys know about blocking blue light? And we said, well, nothing, but we can do it. And so I started working with porphyrins, and we synthesized a bunch of porphyrins, and we work with Alcon, and we have one compound that went into thin films to put into automobile and architectural glass to block that 420, 440 nanometer bandwidth. And that'll stop your retinas from burning out while you're in your car, or stop skin cancer from developing, okay? So right now we just got a patent out of it. Alcon's going to put our product into contact lenses so that they block blue light. Eastman Chemical has put it into thin films for automobiles. That's going worldwide. And but then along came Essilor, the world's biggest maker of sunglasses and glasses. And they said, well, what can we put that doesn't make the lenses look all funky and rosy colored? And I said, I don't know, but we'll look into it. So I started looking into natural products in different plants, and I came across seaweeds. And I called up a company in Oregon that produces edible seaweed, right? Here's another story. So here I am, same time I'm working with L'Oreal. They wanted to put it in skin products, and I started studying sunscreens and stuff like that. And I just realized sunscreen scientists and science is, it's fraudulent. Be careful out there, okay? But with Essilor, I built a library of compounds that we extracted or purchased. And one of the compounds is this. It's a compound that Nick had extracted for me from a species of seaweed, right? And we did it using solvents that don't need FDA approval. At least I think we did, right, Nick? That's okay. You don't have to answer. So in it is a compound called a phytotannin. And it just so happens that this material is able to block that same bandwidth of energy. And so what am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to shop this around. I'm going to go back to L'Oreal and say, hey, you guys want to help us to develop this? But there's other people. I live in Utah, which is the nutraceutical capital of the world, because everybody, the dominant culture here wants to stay young forever. I don't know why, but the fact is that you know, here's an edible form, and by the way, phytotannins like this also have potent anti-inflammatory activity. So, wouldn't you like to set a cream to put on your skin so that you could knock out, you know, inflammatory propensity while blocking blue light? And if you get hungry, you can eat it. So, anyway, that's the story. And let's see what I had another. Oh, I did have another. I must have lost it. Anyway, that is my story. And you know, I hope everybody out there finds a family of molecules that you love as much as I do, like the polyketides and especially the tetracyclines, because you know I wake up every day and somebody says, "Hey, I found a new use for tetracyclines," and I'm like, "No, right? Like, you know, tetracyclines can affect opiate sensitization and desensitization. I might go into that. I don't know. But you know, it's a wonderful world of molecules out there. Don't be afraid to ask questions and learn the organic chemistry, and get your hands dirty, burn holes in your clothes, and question authority.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Can you clapping first?
yeah. So, any questions out there?
We got any questions? You want to pull up the last slide with your email on it so people can look at it?
Oh, I'm not sure I have my last slide. You know what? I didn't put one on. I'm sorry. I kind of whipped this together
No,
last
you
minute.
had one that said like connect with me, but actually I can just because I think you had your Sorbtech email instead of the Gmail.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'll work too. But Rev, you can pass it around. Let me go down here
Okay.
again. Hang on a second.
I'll just pass your Gmail on then.
All right, hang on a second. I think I got it.
Anybody got questions before we leave?
Yeah, you can contact me there.
Oh shit.
Give me a bone slide. We noticed a little. We just want to take a look at your fingers in the bone slide real quick.
Somebody said they want to look at the bone slide again.
Oh, sure. There you go.
No gloves.
Just wanted to make sure.
Hey, listen. By the way, I don't wear lab coats either. Never wore them, except when I was working as a chef. Okay, so I'm that careful because Thiols taught me that. I'm not afraid of chemicals, but I'm still alive, you know, so it's okay. But I'll tell you this. Yeah, you know, I'm glad you're safety conscious, and I'm glad you picked up on that. So, by the way, this whole story can be found on YouTube on a Discovery Channel show called How Beer Saved the World. And so they flew me down to Emory, where George was at, and I was too technical for him. I tried to dumb it down. It didn't work. You can see my hands doing the experiment, and that's it. But, you know, again, you know, working with some of the most dangerous molecules and reagents on the world is well, that's part of the organic chemistry training that well, that's just what I love.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your time with us. Everybody in here enjoyed it. People were like super engaged and laughing. I wish you could see.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, you know, I gave a talk recently in Nevada, at University of Nevada. They're like, "Oh, it'll be 45 minutes." We talked for 2 hours. Right? You know, this whole thing with neurodegeneration and myohormesis. What I didn't tell you though, and I'm sorry I didn't show you the slides, was that we were studying the molecules in an animal model of a virus disease, H1N1.
Hmm.
Gave the drug. No, we infected the animals with H1N1, and then we gave the drug, and it stopped them from dying. Okay. Wow. And guess where we did the studies? That virus capital of the world, Wuhan, China.
Wow.
Yeah, tell me about. But you know, there's great companies there, and you know, I'm not casting aspersions on what happened out of Wuhan, but I will tell you that finding cures for disease is a great thing. You know, and you know, I got to tell you, when I was a kid, You know, when I was a young, I wasn't the best of student. I was kind of a rebel. I was kind of a, well, might say even a juvenile delinquent. And so just before my mom passed away, and she said to me, she goes, Mark, you think I'll get to heaven? I said, Mom, you're going to get to heaven. I said, what about me? And she kind of went, if it wasn't for that drug, I think you'll get there. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my story. So hang in there. Like I said, you know, hit the science hard, and remember, nothing's guaranteed.
Nice. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Good to see you there, Nicholas, or almost see you. Oh, I think Joey raised his hand.
No, that was my bad. I meant to clap.
Oh, okay. All right, all. Pleasure meeting you. You need anything,
you.
contact me anytime. You can find me easily on the internet.
Okay, thank you. Have
All
a good
right.
night.
Peace.